And hello. My name is Adam or Cash, and this is the KashCast, an interview podcast focused mostly on animation to talk to artists, animators, and content creators, and people who work in the animation industry and talking about their life, inspirations, and shedding light on what they do. With me, I have Bona Bones. She has worked on Santa Inc., Robot Chicken, and Crossing Swords, as well as being someone who's experienced in art education. And I'm really excited to have her on the show. Now, let me turn the mic over to her so she can introduce herself.
Yeah, thanks so much. I'm really excited to be doing this today. I know it's a long time coming. We've been trying to plan around this for a while, so I'm excited we finally get to do this episode.
Definitely. Man, we were talking about this earlier, but it really has been what, almost or at least half a year since we
Yeah,
first tried to get this
that's so
up.
bad. That's so
Oh man.
bad. Sometimes life just happens like that, though.
Yeah, incredibly. That's why I completely understood because sometimes you just got a random thing out of nowhere. 40 I initiated. How I had first discovered you, it was yeah, it was through your TikTok page.
Yeah, that's right.
Grant yeah, granted, I think I might be one of the few 20 somethings that is still eternally confused as to how to actually properly navigate TikTok, especially as an artist. So you are definitely you're definitely knocking out the freaking park.
Thank you.
um, no problem. Oh my god! There was just a whole look. I think the fact that I never got on Vine is imperative. The fact that I just cannot get into TikTok. As someone who just watches funny stuff, yeah, but actually making content for it, not that good yet.
Yeah, TikTok's weird. I got on Vine. The funny thing is, I got on Vine like a month before it shut down, and
Oh my
and like I
god,
was
it's hilarious.
getting followers like pretty quickly. Like I think by the time it shut down, I had like 3 or 4 thousand followers like over the course of like a month. Um,
Whoa.
and like I was like, oh, this sucks. Like it's gone now. Like all right. I didn't really understand TikTok at all when I first started using it. And it's funny because, yeah, it's about my art and animation, but most of it's just like word vomit. It's like me just me talking about like whatever dumb shit I'm thinking that day. But people seem to like it, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I love to do stuff like that myself, but my bread and butter is more so scripted YouTube content. And again, because
Mhm.
of the fact that I miss a whole era of short form content myself, trying to get into that myself just feels like a modern day caveman trying to learn how to use the telephone. But I'll figure something out. um,
That's funny.
and yeah, so my original point was that I initially found you because of the fact that you were giving free consultation, free primer Zoom meetings just to evaluate people and give them more information about breaking into the industry. And obviously it worked because I've been a titmouse for I think officially a year this month.
I love that.
Uh,
That just makes me
yeah,
so happy that like you're there and like you probably know a bunch of the same people I know now and like I'm like really happy to hear that.
yeah. Thank you so much. So I think I always try to keep track of everyone that's helped me. So that's why I wanted. Yeah, that was another reason I wanted to have you on because hey, fine, I can brag about this shit to you now. So so obviously thank you. But yeah, obviously that little thing you had was very much appreciated. But was there anything specifically that motivated you to want to do that in the first place?
So I've always been a teacher. I like arts education has always been like really foundational to my career. Even like when I'm animating, like I'm really passionate about like helping young people. And so it actually started in 2020 during the Black Lives Matter protests. And
Right,
I
right.
like the original thing was like I will help tutor young black animators for free as like just like a like something that I can contribute because I was feeling like very useless in my ability to like help with any of that. Um And eventually it kind of like grew into this like, oh, I will just meet with you for free to anybody. Um, and so I made like a little like booking calendar on my website where people could just like sign up first. And so like Tuesday and Thursday afternoons is like when you can like sign up for a block. And so people just started signing up, and like it just like snowballed. And so I've met with like hundreds of young animators at this point who like will just sign up for an hour meeting. And sometimes like they'll continue to make meetings and be like, hey, like this is how my film is going. Sometimes it's just a one-off where they were just looking for some advice or some introspection, an inside look into the animation world.
Yeah, I remember like other groups, obviously, especially like a lot of like charities, Black and Anime specifically. Like a lot of those like groups were really doing like a lot of work during that time. If I remember, well, obviously like time isn't real anymore. Like I can't remember if it was like 2020 or 2021 summer, but I remember there was a point where I was trying to like take advantage of like some of those like resources. So Larissa Morantz, yeah, so she was providing some like online Zoom education as well, which definitely did help for a bit. But the fact that like that was on final semester, you know, pandemic stress and trying to like get foundational, it
Yeah,
yeah, it was
it's a
for me. But
lot.
that's obviously not the quality of the course. It's just like me being a different type of a learner, I think. So let me ask about you specifically. Like how did you get to this point? Like were you always like passionate about animation?
No, it's funny. I wasn't like one of those kids who was drawing all the time. I wasn't like um really putting myself out there with the animation until I was probably like 18 or 19. I had graduated high school and like had taken a gap year. And I joke all the time that like the only reason I applied to Cal Arts to study animation was because like this guy that I had a crush on was going. Um, and then that's what happened. I got in and I was like, oh, I guess I'm doing this. It was the only college I applied to. I didn't know that it was like the most prestigious animation school in the fucking world.
Oh
Um,
wow.
yeah, I had no idea that it was like the most prestigious animation school in the world. And then I got there and I was like, oh, I guess I'm doing this now. It worked out. It worked out, and like I've always been passionate about the arts. Like I came from like a theater background. Like when I was like younger in high school, like my first like paid jobs were doing like soundboard tech for like theater gigs, and so it made sense. Stop motion is just little theater, and so like all those skills I learned like working crews in high school and like for regional theaters in the area like ended up translating directly into stop motion.
Right, right. So yeah, like one of the main reasons why I was like interested in like having you here is because as I try to get back into like doing these episodes, I wanted to like expand my reach, and stop motion, despite like knowing of it as like a viewer, you know, obviously I haven't like worked on any project with stop motion. It's a industry that like I'm not good enough to like contribute to, but I'm definitely interested in because I want to learn more, and hopefully my audience, would like to like hear more as well. So again, like thank you for stopping by. Um, but also that should tie into yeah my first real question. In terms of like a traditional like stop motion, like a television stop motion project workflow, for instance, how would you say it like compares or contrasts compared to like say like an average like 2D animated shows workflow?
I always tell my students it's much more like live action than it is like
Hmm.
animation. Um, it is way more pre-production heavy than a typical like 2D animation show. And the animation is actually like what takes the least amount of time.
Oh really?
And so the builds and prep work are months on end. And then once that's all built, like we can start banging out episodes like really quick on a show like Robot Chicken, especially like we can get through, a season from, what is it, April to September.
Oh wow.
Um, and so uh it's a little bit different and it functions a lot closer to like what you would imagine a live action set being like.
Right, right. Yeah, definitely definitely a contrast. For context sake, yeah, I'm pretty sure I went into went into detail on my previously recorded episode. But yeah, I'm currently a production assistant on Disney's KIF. And now that's been announced, I can also say that my first project was the upcoming Metalocalypse movie. So there's that. Um,
So
yeah, definitely.
exciting.
Oh my god, it's gonna be so good. um, but yeah, like I definitely feel like uh, I am a bit lucky in the fact that I can basically like do like my work and like helping out my coworkers almost entirely from home, which definitely is a good thing. I don't think I'd be able to like break in if I didn't have, you know, the opportunity as well. Um, but yeah, it's like at least on my end, it's I don't know because again, like even me trying to break in, I never like saw much in terms of breaking into production specifically. uh a lot of resources are very good, but they're always like geared towards, at least in my experience, breaking into like a design role, like character design, storyboarding,
Mm-hmm.
animating, because like those are the more popular roles that like people like immediately go for, people like know they're fans, which isn't wrong. It's not like their fault, especially if they don't have a traditional art education. um but I guess like one thing for like anyone who's listening, who doesn't know, like say like what I would be doing on like regular, a lot of it is just notes, just note taking, typing a lot.
Mm-hmm.
If you're really good at that, then like you'll be fine. Honestly, if you know your way around a computer, especially a Mac, you'll be fine. And yeah, like just that, and just like being able to being able to learn like new techniques or like new programs like fairly quickly. Obviously people will be there to like help you with stuff, and like knowing a little bit of some of these programs in advance will help, even if you're not say using them. Knowing the Adobe stuff, I had to learn honestly very little. I can't board a sequence, but I did have to know a little bit about Storyboard Pro because like now I'm doing conforms, for instance, and like some of the
Mm-hmm.
Adobe suite as well. A lot of Google Sheets, a lot of Excel. I was underestimating how much. So that's another more so that like I didn't know that if I could tell myself I would. I don't know how often like you interface with like people who work in production at your end. Someone who works in production like on say Robot Chicken, what would you say like some of their duties
Mm-hmm.
would be on a regular?
So I mean, the thing about like working on a show like that is that like we all have to be on site and like in the same building. So
Right.
like during COVID, like animation was popping off, right? Not stop motion because like we could not get into the studio,
Yeah.
and so production is way more hands on in a show like that. Like we're all in the same building, and so like when production is like making calls about like what's happening, like everything's happening real time. Like we are all right there. Um, and so, like, we have a lot more FaceTime with the above the line people as animators on that show.
Well, especially like, my neck of woods, again, with a perspective focusing on 2D animation, you know, a lot of these like groups, that want to like help like break in people into the industry do say that production is like good entry level, especially for someone who like is interested
Mm-hmm.
enough in animation to like be say like above the level of like a fan, but like probably doesn't have a prior exposure. So like you do learn like about the pipeline, at least again for me, like a typical like
Mm-hmm.
2D one or two. I will say this, from working on an in-house animated special compared to a, well, not long running, I wish, um but a regular like a 22-minute show. The pipelines are definitely different, and honestly, KIFs is more challenging. I'm definitely doing a lot more. I think like a lot of people would like immediately assume that something as brutal as Metalocalypse would be much more involved, but at least for my personal duties, no. Um, like the fact that there are assets that had to be shipped to a different actual animation studio in Korea. Like really, it really does overcomplicate things. Uh, yeah, a lot more than people would
Yeah,
think.
totally. And the production, the timelines are just so much faster. Like the turnaround for a show like that is so much faster than
Yeah,
working on a special, and so it makes sense that your workload is heavier on a show, on a
yeah. Oh,
a
definitely.
serial.
I was talking about some of my duties on another podcast, not mine. A friend of the show, Elwood City Limits. So, hi, Will and Lucas, if you're listening. um, but yeah, like you can just like get thrown like into like certain other duties. Like I've been better at some than others. Like I've helped do script breakdowns. I've helped distribute time cards. Currently, I do spot, uh, text lists. So like, if they're like any like text cards that can easily be replaced for when we
Hmm.
air in like international areas. Gotta you know track that down to make sure. Hey, we need like a blank version of this. Um, and even like something as like
Hmm.
trivial as like screenshots for like using like PR articles, stuff like that. Say we get like a big guest star as like a voice. Yeah. It, it's weird because like a lot of stuff like does feel, there are like tasks that like might feel boring and not like actually contributing, but then when like you actually see the big picture coming. No, I felt this more once we actually started getting episodes out. As someone who also helps like get the credits together,
Right.
it's like, yeah, even the boring stuff is way more important than you think. So that's another thing I'd like to like tell.
Yeah, totally.
um okay, but
That's so accurate because it takes so many
oh,
people to
exactly.
make a production work, and like even the smallest jobs are
Yeah.
really really
Yeah,
important.
no, for sure. It's like, this is really like the invisible role that like not a lot of people know about. So of course I do want to like highlight that a bit. Um, but of course, like I'm babbling by myself a bit too much. Um, okay. Wait, so here's a semi-related question. Like in your wheelhouse, because like I know stop motion is a completely different workflow. And I know you sadly read your fair share of internet comments. So I'd like to like quickly ask, are there any general misconceptions about like stop motion animation that you want to just like immediately comment on and just clarify?
Everyone always thinks it's clay. It's not always clay, guys. Like everyone's like, "Oh, you do claymation." No, it's not the same. But yeah, it's funny because claymation is like a brand.
Right.
Like Band-Aid is a brand, right? Except everyone calls Band-Aids Band-Aids because that's the word we know. And so claymation is like the same where like that is a brand name that like Vinton Studios came up with. Like Leica owns the
Oh,
name
really?
claymation because they ended up buying out Vinton Studios. And so it's funny that everyone's always like, "Oh, so claymation?" No, it's stop motion, my guys.
Actually, you know what? This is just like a personal question because, like, obviously, over in my territory, like 23 point whatever, 24 FPS is the norm. When you're doing stuff on Robot Chicken or like another stop motion project, is that like the same frame rate? Are things different?
Oh man.
Oh
So Robot Chicken is we're shooting it on 30 at Robot Chicken,
my
and I don't know
god!
why. I don't know the specific answer to that. But we don't shoot at
Hmm.
24. And it's weird because like sometimes you'll be working on like more than one show at once. And so like jumping back and forth between 30 frames a second and 24 is like a
Oh my
mind
god!
melting thing because you like have to think about the animation in a
Right.
different way. And so it can be weirdly like tedious to like readjust your mindset for like 24 frames a second versus 30. Um, and so I think it's because that's like television broadcast. I'm not sure what the answer is. I know I asked at one point because I was like, why are we doing this? Why are we making extra frames? And I can't remember what the specific answer was. I want to say it was because they were like, oh, well, that was just what we did because it's television broadcast.
Yeah. Like sadly, like I'm not like that nerdy enough to actually put a bit of insight that myself. Like outside of knowing that like we're 60 and like no European, like they have the power form at 50. That's all I know. So I can't contribute much to that either. Um but no, it is interesting. I mean, obviously not good that you're doing extra work that might not even be needed, but you know. So
Yeah, definitely.
so okay. Are there any particular pieces of art and media, animated or otherwise, that like have served as like sources of inspiration for you?
Yeah, I mean, I talk a lot about Gumby. I like grew up watching Gumby, and I just loved it, and it just like made sense to my brain. Like, oh, it's a little clay guy, and he's scooting around with his friends. Um, but I had originally come from like kind of like a theater and like live action background, and so like a lot of the inspiration I had like wasn't
Hmm.
animation related. Like it was like movies I had seen, like plays I had seen. Like a lot of the techniques I use in stop motion come directly from like theater, like musicals I had seen, and so like it's all encompassing, right? Like whether you realize it or not, the media that you're consuming is always affecting
Oh
your
yeah,
artwork.
definitely. You know, I've talked to yeah, I've talked to a couple people previously. You know, even on this show, and that's why you know, it's highly recommended for people to have like a broader media diet, especially like watching more live action or to like, you know, get
Hmm.
more inspiration. So yeah, I completely agree, honestly. Um, I will admit, I will admit, ever since starting to like work on kids specifically, which obviously has like a you know much more arduous workload, I haven't even been watching cartoons much to be completely honest. It's not even that like
Yeah, and
yeah.
that's
No, I'm
fair.
sorry. You continue first.
No, no, I get that because I watch so much reality
Man.
TV now, and my boyfriend is always like, "This is trash. Why are you watching this?" And I my answer is like always the same. I'm like, I have to talk about film and animation all day at work. So like when I come home from work, I just want to watch like Love Is Blind or like Love Married at First Sight, just like whatever dumb dating
Yeah.
show is on. And so like it can be once you work in the industry, like once you work in film, maintaining and keeping up on everything can be a little tiring. And so like you want to protect that for yourself because you still want to be able to enjoy what you're doing. And so for me personally, like sometimes that's just like watching dumb
Yeah,
TV
yeah, of
shows.
course. Like, I don't know. Like for me, it's like, you know, I could just like get off, you know, like 7 or so. And my first instinct is honestly just like face plant like onto my bed, just like lay there for a bit. And no, it sucks because like obviously I still have like a passion for cartoons. Otherwise, I wouldn't still try to continue working in this field. I definitely see like
Hmm.
people bumping like episodes that you know we're gonna air during the weekend, or other people like say even other Disney shows. You know, like you know being like more active. You know, like you know I
Hmm.
love to say like, hey, I really love the episode you did, but I'm like I kind of I kind of just want to chill for a bit. You know, like maybe reconnect
Yeah,
to like some of my other
totally.
interests that like you know don't really have much to do with animation. Like again, I still love cartoons, but like I gotta I gotta keep myself grounded to an extent. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, I love cooking. Like that's like one of my like side hobbies that like keeps
Oh
me
heck yeah.
sane. And so like I think you need to find something like that, you know what I mean, when you're working in the industry so you don't get burnt out. Like you have to be very careful about like creating and curating space for
Yeah,
yourself.
absolutely. Of all things, I remember it was the same day where we had our premiere party, and I just like jetted with one of my friends from college. because for context, we're in Manhattan, the office obviously, and I guess I like play like competitive fighting games, Smash Bros on the side because I I wanted to connect to like that one hobby that completely furthest from cartoons, just to like like chill for a
Hmm.
bit. Of all things, like I remember bumping into again like another friend of the show, Timothy K, who is actually like a live action production assistant. I think on yeah, he told me the show. It was something on NBC. But yeah, like also was like in that video game niche. It was like really gratifying not to only like find someone
Hmm.
who can kick my ass, but someone who actually like knows like day to day, just like working production can be a trip. Uh, but it's all balanced. It's all
Yeah,
balanced, obviously. Yeah.
totally, absolutely.
Okay. Okay. So next bullet. So the current animation climate is in an incredibly rough state, in the essence of projects being shelved, cut in half, or disappearing off of storefronts overnight while workers are attempting to fight for a new deal to be treated more fairly. Do you have any particular thoughts about, the state of the industry, unionization, or any hopes for the future?
Yeah, so I mean, I've always been very pro union. Stop motion doesn't have a union. And so I do think it's something that we would benefit from, and it's a conversation that like I've had with a lot of people. Um, I do think that like a big part of the problem with like what we're seeing happening now is um, uh, all of these media companies are starting to essentially be monopolies. I mean, they rolled back a lot of the antitrust
Mm-hmm.
laws in the last like 5-10 years, and I think that I don't think when they made those decisions to roll back antitrust, they would see just how bad the problem
Yeah.
was gonna get. In the fact that like Disney owns everything, Nickelodeon owns everything, like all these media companies. There's like 5 or 6 media companies that own 90% of the content being produced online, on
Yeah.
television, on the radio, like everything. Um, and I think that those protections being gone are one of the reasons why we're starting to see all these projects being shelved, just because every company is like being bought by somebody else. And so there's such an instability associated with that that was generated by like this market kind of collapsing enough. That being said, like I don't think animation is going anywhere. I think that there's going to be a lot of opportunities for it in the future because it's one of the most in demand careers in the country right now. It's growing so fast because animation is such a part of our daily lives. Like it's in your user interface in your phone. It's like in the advertising you're seeing. It's everywhere. It's on social media. It's such an important part of what we do now. And so I think that we're going to see a lot more kind of like blue collar animation jobs that are available. We're like, sure, maybe you don't work for Pixar, but like you can make a living doing ads for TikTok.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I mean, you can make a living doing ads for TikTok and still be animating and still doing what you love. Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that's like a completely valid career choice.
Yeah, I agree. I agree, honestly. Um, I was very lucky in getting to this point. I've definitely talked about this, to like other people, in my field that like do know like a more personal level. Um, but at the point that I was at, I think around time when I first, reached out to have that conference with you, um, I was like freshly like maybe like well, again, like time isn't real, so I might be like getting like a year mixed up. But point is, uh, when I graduated with my bachelor's degree in human services, um, I wasn't getting jack, and I was trying to do the quote unquote approved route of getting a quote unquote normal job with my major, and that didn't get me anything. Even the people who I previously worked with for my internship, which of course is unpaid. Um I mean I enjoyed the work I did, but
Yeah.
in hindsight with the amount of time that I put in, it's like but Yeah, like even surprisingly, like I didn't hear back from them, which was surprising, especially in hindsight because many of the same people were still there. I obviously was on good rapport with them, but no, nothing. So when I got a chance to work at Ditmouse was obviously like a studio that I was familiar with. Like I grew up on Megs XLRs, like why not? So obviously I'm gonna take that chance. Um Obviously like very lucky in like some regard to like be able to like be solidly employed for an entire year. Like I'm definitely gonna be thankful for that. Be thankful for like people who got me to this point. Um, it's just weird, like as much as I want to maintain optimism, like working like in this field, and I think like everyone like feels it to an extent. It's kind of hard to like grit and bear when you really don't know what's gonna be next. Um,
Right.
and like it doesn't even matter like the tone of like the project you're working on, but it's like if you don't have like we're more than workers, we're more than like walking ad spaces to like do promotion for the project that we're working on. We're like people, and uh, above all else, people deserve like enough like money protection to like uh, like get around and live. And even if like they
Yeah, just like a basic quality of
absolutely,
life.
like even if they like do wrap on a project, they should have like enough of like a cushion to be able to like ride that phase of like job hunting a little bit easier. Again, like talking these things like out loud,
Mhm.
it doesn't sound at all like really big things, but and at the very least, especially like this week, I'm glad that more places are unionizing. I've seen a Powerhouse over in Texas. I see Sega of all companies. They're unionized as well. Uh, in case this actually goes somewhere, and then when over in that group listens, love the name. Um, for context sake, they're named Aegis, Aegis, which while I'm pretty sure is a Persona reference, in reality, um, I at least I personally caught it as like a it's like a spin on that old slogan, to be this good takes ages, Sega backwards. Like, look, I'm a fucking game nerd. Obviously, I'm gonna pick on this shit. Um, but of course,
I love it.
of course, no matter what, I'm always going to be pro union. Like no matter what field, obviously, I will always like do more support. And I think the fact that we are getting more unions in places that are um other than say like New York and California, um definitely will hopefully dispel the myth and polite fear mongering from some families that animation will like only be viable if you move out to like either of those two, especially because like how these
Mhm.
jobs, a lot of them uh have relied on remote work, so it just wouldn't make sense to just like upset that and you know just sacrifice the amount of people that you would uh get on a project just to like say push everyone back to the office for making numbers look better.
Right,
Hmm.
right, totally.
um
Yeah, it's such an interesting conversation. I think that we're becoming like culturally a lot more
yeah,
cognizant of these kinds of topics.
yeah, and I think it's good that like more people like are uh talking about this stuff, because like even especially um before this time, you kind of didn't really hear about this stuff. Like I'm someone who like got into animation because like that era of like 2010 stuff on Cartoon Network and Disney Channel specifically, you know, uh big Steve Universe, big OKKO fan. Um yeah, of course.
Sure.
That really shaped how I, you know, left a huge impact on me and shaped like, what I wanted to do and types of jobs that, I thought were interesting. But you didn't hear a lot about unions. Like if you were like eagle-eyed and spent too much time on Tumblr, maybe like you might have known about like you know uh 839, Animation Guild, the main branch, but at that time specifically, they were only based in California, and at least in my
Sure.
position, and there's probably others out there who didn't have a background in art, didn't have like schools that actually still encourage people to pursue art education, art as a creative outlet. There are a lot of people who have all the aspiration and probably the skill too, but not the resources to actually know how to get visible. So while obviously like the 2020 climate was bad because of like the real world events that spurred it on, I am glad that there were a lot of like
Right.
operations individuals trying to trying to uplift people, trying to help people out in order to like give them the tools, give them the knowledge to like be better prepared to enter the industry. And it does work. WIA, Black Animated, Rise Up Animation, Learning Animation, all these groups, and
Mhm.
probably many more out there. That's what I like the most, that there are a lot of these groups out there that they're doing a lot of support. I am very bleeding hearted. It might be the human services major in me, but I am passionate about the help as well. So I'm happy for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see like how things evolve over the next decade and the next 20 years, because I feel like it changes or has changed so rapidly even in like the years that I've
Oh
been in the
yeah,
industry.
definitely. No, even something as small as just you know, using like say Clip Studio Paint instead of Photoshop to like do backgrounds, or even just like allowing that program to begin with, would probably have like huge
Hmm.
implications, and anything to like lower the bar of entry. Again, 2D animation specifically, that's more my wheelhouse, but anything to like lower the bar of entry for like a lot of these people would definitely help, because like oftentimes, especially with a lot of these kids like younger than me, who are like able to like do freaking animations on their phone that rival the quality of Akira, and they're doing it on their fingertips. No, they have like
Right,
the
right.
base knowledge, just that again, like now more than ever, like some of these younger people, they probably don't use computers themselves as much, so it's like bringing them up on that's the thing. But like if you see someone like that with like spark, absolutely, like I think like that's another thing I'm passionate about, honestly. I absolutely think youth has potential, and I wouldn't be surprised if the way that people younger than me, like the next like two generations or whatever, like really end up having an impact on, if not like the types of projects we see and where and how we see them, but what impact they could have on the pipeline, as like things inevitably do need to be more accessible.
Right. And I think that's one of the reasons like why I'm so invested into like arts education and like why I do these like free meetings and stuff, is that like I think that the internet in a lot of ways has, there's a lot of cons
Yeah.
that come with it, but one of the pros is like the internet is like a great
Mhm.
equalizer. It's easy and accessible to teach yourself how to animate with like free
Yeah.
online courses with free software that you download it now. And this stuff was not like that when I started. And like I'm not like that old where like the internet like wasn't around, but like it was MySpace. Like that
Yeah.
was kind of it. Um, like we had YouTube, but it was like Candy Mountain
Oh my
Johnny. Like that was
god.
it. Like, um, uh, and so I think that there's so many resources available now for people who like want to be self-taught, who have the
Hmm.
passion for it, and it's way easier to get recognized now. Like before, you had to like submit a demo reel to a studio in LA and mail it to them, and like just hope that they contacted you. And like it was like a million and one odds, and like you didn't know, you like there was nobody to like email, you couldn't like find out more information. And so like it's a lot easier now. And I think in some ways, I think like my students sometimes get maybe downtrodden because they feel like there's more competition, but I don't think that's a bad thing. Like I think that raises the bar for everybody.
Hmm.
And we are seeing more animation being produced over time. Like it's only going to get better,
Yeah,
I think.
yeah. That's always, a glass half full perspective. The fact that more people who are motivated and learning more, should like motivate you to like catch up and be better. But it's also important to remember that
Yeah.
just because someone is progressing at a faster pace doesn't automatically mean that you aren't valid compared to them. Because like social media, Twitter especially, um, is really good at like just making you insecure about like numbers and followings and connections and all that. And that
Mhm.
kind of kills it. No, honestly, like I will be honest for a bit. But I know while I might draw better now, I feel like it's more kind of like worrying to like express myself through art as opposed to when I didn't break in, because of the fact that like there are more eyes, the weight of like some eyes more than others are bigger, and like even
Mhm.
just like doing fan art, it's like not even like doing fan art for the sake of like say like clicks. It's not my primary motivation, to be honest, but like um something that is like really popular among like say like an offline friend circle might be completely unknown to like people who you share like a field with, even if everyone basically is
Mhm.
nerds. I think it's like an unwritten rule that like everyone in this field has to have a Nintendo Switch. uh so,
It's true. It's
uh,
true. And like a shitty
oh my
bucket hat.
god. Hey, I got one of them. We're halfway there.
See, what did I say?
uh but
That's
but
funny.
yeah, it is. And yeah, this I don't know. Like on one hand, this is obviously like a more personal issue, but I would also imagine if there are and there will be, like people who come to like my position from a similar route of like not not having prior exposure to like other people like in this field, or even necessarily going to like an art college, and just like winding up on like a project
Mhm.
or a show. That getting to know like phase like networking is definitely hard. And again, while I think is inherent benefit for studios to at the very least still offer a hybrid option for people to be more accessible, the ability to socialize is you know almost non-existent, or at the very least a lot harder to actually
Mhm.
navigate towards. It feels no it definitely feels a lot more artificial. And for people who like probably don't know many people, or in my case, if you do, a lot of people that you know prior are all the way out of California, so it's not like you can not like you can grab some coffee with them. Uh, like it
Sure.
is rough. Um, like I definitely lucked out with my podcast percent speed run route. So there's always some uh unconventional way to break in. I'll say that much to like anyone
Mhm.
who is in my
Totally.
position like 2 or so years ago.
Yeah, I think that persistence is like 90% of it. Is like
Yeah.
not giving up. Like it took me so long. I when I first got started, it took me so long to like get my first like
Hmm.
full-time gig. And like, like I would get little stuff here and there, like a music video or a commercial, but like that stuff isn't really
Yeah.
sustainable. I don't think I got my first like job in the industry until I was like 24, 25. Like it takes time, and like it just because like you don't get the answer you want right away doesn't mean that you
Yeah.
can't. I didn't get hired for my first season full time on Robot Chicken until I think I was
Oh wow.
30. And so I had been doing freelance work. I had interned for Stupid Buddy Studios. I had even done like commercials with them, but I like it took me a long time to like land my first like of a show, um, and It's just persistence.
Definitely, definitely. And I think from my perspective, especially if like anyone listening is someone who like still would like describe themselves as an animation fan, I will say a big chunk of me getting to this point, and there are a lot of episodes you can see as proof, is just the fact that I kept up with shows. I kept up with people who did work on shows that I liked, and I kept their names like in the back of my head. For character designers board specifically, that sort of advice is like thrown out. Um, just say like, hey, if this is like the job that you would want, look at look at the sort of stuff that they're drawing, they're painting, they're rigging, and like see, if your work is up to snuff. See if you could like learn how to do something that is that good. And that's obviously not to say that can like be done overnight, but something. And like doing cold emails, it's a dice toss, but again, if you're listening to this, it works. So, eventually you do just have to like put yourself out there. And that's a lesson that I have found myself having to like relearn like repeatedly. But again, it does work. It does work. But yeah,
Yeah, it
finally,
does.
so our final little segment before we
Okay.
go into a Q&A. It will be me admittedly getting onto a bit of a soapbox to talk about and advocate for production, but also feel free to like contribute because I greatly value perspective. And there's like any misconceptions that I have, please feel free to clarify them as well. So for anyone listening, I yes. So not only am I a production assistant at Titmouse, I am also a member of Titmouse New York's union, and we have made pretty good progress. We are really close on like some pretty good news. Um, but I feel like not only is there as we yeah, I feel like there is not only as we previously discussed, a bit of haze and confusion around like onlookers, outsiders, animation fans about the importance of unions, but also just like the roles of people who work in production. It's not an especially glamorous role. Even if it's not necessarily looked down on. No, I know that a lot of people probably don't even know that the role exists, and I feel that because of that, I feel like when these groups like try to like advocate for themselves specifically, it's easier to like squash them down, which obviously sucks. You know, uh, just looking at some articles, I think recently there
Right.
were some production people specifically that wanted to unionize at Disney Animation, and Disney did not want to recognize them, which obviously does not look good on them. If I might have to like double check my Twitter account for my podcast, but I think there was like a walkout actually. Um, I'll obviously like uh maybe like record like a little bit to like add that as the case. I will just say right now, production is the reason that projects get made. That is not to say that like anyone else's role is unimportant. Everyone's role is important, but production specifically is one of like the most like unsung
Right.
roles. I've previously like talked about like some of the roles that I do, but um, from taking notes on animation retakes to being able to get together a file for a specific asset at a moment's notice, and being able to like interface with people, whether it be like internally or like say like
Mm-hmm.
at Disney for instance or whatever. uh it's a lot. At the base it may sound simple, and to an extent, at least for me and being a PA, it is. But there are also times where it's like I'm kind of tired, not gonna lie. Like some of the tasks I get like feel simple on they look simple, but like the amount of time you have to do them, and the fact that you can like maybe get thrown into something completely different, and you gotta learn how to like do something that you probably weren't doing before, and you gotta like fit in, just like be a great gear, even temporarily to like make sure everyone else stays on track, because like, yeah, I talked about this in, again, like a separate podcast that wasn't mine, but what I've been doing recently, including today, was animation retakes because one of my coworkers has been out, so they weren't able to do it. So I had to learn, um, and I've been doing it, and I'm grateful that people have been patient with me enough to learn the ropes. But again, there had to be somebody available to do that, because we need to like take these notes to know what shots need to be redone by who, what specifically, what had to be like sent back to our animation studio in Korea. It's a lot. And you're getting notes from multiple different people, including the creators, and you gotta know what to take. And that's just one thing. It's also like getting together those drawovers, renaming, and you know, uh, again, it's just a lot. And I I'm aware that I am talking in circles, but my main point is, it is a deceptively, um, deceptively challenging job that's very important and doesn't get a lot of recognition and respect. And I also definitely think that, since I'm able to speak off the record, um, for how important that this job is to animation projects, I don't believe that, a lot of these people are being paid enough or respected enough, and obviously, everyone deserves a fair wage. Uh, but for a group specifically that a lot of people might not even know about, or the magnitude of the contributions that they're making, I definitely feel that production workers do deserve more respect. And yeah, my
Hello.
final point is just that, in spite of production not being a role that a lot of people know about, is a deceptively challenging and very nuanced position. And I believe that everyone in there deserves to be like treated fairly, and paid, much more. Honestly, obviously, like a minimum, yeah, obviously, like their minimum wage should be actually livable. And if there's like any
Right.
protections to like make sure that people are able to be looked out for more, making it, especially for, so like people who are like newer, don't feel like an obligation to like overwork themselves, like work past hours, for the sake of like the larger project, staying on track, just avoiding any and all like consequences of that, to like make sure like everyone is like being treated fairly, not being burned out. I feel that's very important. And obviously, I feel it's important for
Yeah.
everyone on staff, but because production doesn't often get, advocated for, I want to put my voice out there directly, and now I will give the mic to you so you can finally have like your input. Thank you.
No, I think that's all really like a great point, and I think that to be on the production side of things, you really have to be kind of a jack of all trade. And this is something that I think has come up like throughout my career, is that um sometimes the people who work in production think are not coming from animation
Hmm.
backgrounds, right? Um and so when you do find production people who understand animation, who understand how the production pipeline works on an animated show or an anime, like they're so valuable and they really do get underappreciated. And so I think like you're right, like it is a kind of thankless job. And to be completely honest, I don't think I've told anyone this. I got fired from my first animation job because it was a production job and I just
Oh,
couldn't hack
wow.
it. Like I just don't have the organizational, like I just don't like, it's just not my skills. I'm an animator. Like that's what I'm good at. And so I thought I would take this production job and like kind of like get into animation. And like it worked. Like I did. I ended up getting a job as an animator after. But like doing production work was so hard, like ordering, scheduling, like I just couldn't stay on top of it all. Like it's such a hard job, and like don't get enough credit for it, especially when you're like below the line in the production office, like PAs, you know, like coordinators,
Yeah.
stuff like that. Like they're just not getting they
Yeah,
deserve.
absolutely, absolutely. There are like, some there are like some tasks I've done that, again, I've done like some better than others. I'm not really like the best like script breakdowns or you know, tag and designs, but I've done enough to where, a production, like a day doesn't get like huge setbacks because of like my mistake. And obviously it's not my intent to like give more people mess to clean up. That's not my intent at all. um but again, just goes to show like how coordinated you have to be in order to get this deal. Like I know, um
Yeah.
like I don't think like this perspective comes from a bad place, but I know when a lot of people pitch breaking into via production, especially a production assistant, people might infer that is like a quote unquote easy job they can just like get to break
Mm-hmm.
in. But that's not really a good idea. Might not be possible. If
Right.
it's not impossible from what I've heard to like jump into a creative position. But you know, it like you'll definitely learn a lot. You'll definitely learn a lot on the job. And I'm glad for that.
Right.
Um, but for me specifically, who like my eventual goal, like I do want to graduate to a creative position, but because of the fact that I no longer really have the time to work on my art, uh, my art skills are definitely not up there, and that's fine because I'm not getting paid to be creative. Um, but
Mm-hmm.
I feel like people might feel like it's like an easy ride, and you know people who probably again like haven't worked prior and just like are only going off of like notes and like other things, just like being, oh, okay, like I'll just like do this, and then I'll be working on like a big thing, like like the Owl House, like Amphibia or whatever. When in reality, much harder,
Mm-hmm.
much harder. I don't know when I'll be able to like make that jump, or if it will even still be at the same studio. But um, it's all about like making time. And honestly, from just like working for almost a year, I think that being able to have enough money um to like live my own, and pay for my expenses and not be chronically tired, and still having to give those like 7 to 8 hours is much more important than necessarily working on a dream project, because dream projects can eventually
Mm-hmm.
just become projects.
Yeah, totally. It's so funny because I feel like I'm not usually, I don't think I would define myself as an optimistic person. But with animation, I do feel optimistic. I'm like, yeah, it'll work out. Like everyone's dreams will come true. We're all in this together. It's gonna be great.
and yeah, no, like I get that too. Like internally, I'm very much burnt out. I'm definitely like a bit more jaded towards a lot of things. Honestly, I'm not gonna blame cartoons for that. Um, but I always try to be nice to everybody because one, why not? And two, like I,
Yeah,
I wouldn't try to if like I didn't still feel like a passion, like at least for like maybe like a little bit in the first
totally.
couple weeks. There was like a bit of a fanboyism. Uh Now it's like, you know,
Gotta
yeah,
be a little
yeah, of
bit.
course,
Gotta
of
be a little
course.
bit.
Now it's just like internally I'm like, it's just never fucking Monday, you know? But like I'm still happy to be able to be contributing to any project, but especially something like Monologue Clip, something like KIF. The fact that I can say that like I worked on that, even if I'm not in a creative route, That's still my name is forever gonna be in there. And like having people, especially your friends and family, like share that moment with you, like nothing can like replace that, you know. So I'm definitely happy for that. But also, you know, a little bit more
Mhm.
money would help. I mean, I don't think anyone would ever complain. Yeah,
Wouldn't hurt.
absolutely. um, so question. So if you had any like specific comments, you know, hopes or opinions on like more studios, like, you know, around the US, like being able to unionize or like, you know, ideal goals that you think like it would be good for them to have, you know, any comments specifically, you know, just feel free to say it.
Yeah, again, very very pro union. I think unionization protects everybody. But like there's other ways to do it too. Like you can collectively bargain without forming a union. You don't have to form a union in order to negotiate your contracts collectively. And so even if like unionization might not be the right plan for you and like your coworkers, like you can still use union tactics um, to help get the best possible work environment for you and your
Right, right.
coworkers.
Like, would you have any suggestions on like breaking down the importance of, you know, workers' rights or like, you know, say being in a union to like someone who is passionate about animation but is like definitely like from a fan's perspective and not so much knowing like working animation for like a job's perspective, you know, like, you know, having to get like wages, you know, like benefits, you know, playing from retirement and all that.
Sorry, I don't think I understood the question. So, are you asking me just generally like
Yeah,
advice for
yeah,
that?
like how do I put it? Hearing myself like 2 seconds later is like definitely psyched me out a bit. um but yeah, so like my main question was like because I do feel like fans, you know, tend to interact with animation on like a surface level. Like they obviously like the shows and they want to be like, oh, I want to work in my dream studio. But then, you know, the other half is like it's still a job. So, you know, a lot of them might not be prepared for, you know, the fact that there might be things to unionize about. So, like if there's like anything like if you like any suggestions like how to like break down the importance of, you know, workers' rights and like, you know, advocating you know, for better rights while on the job to people who might only understand like working animation as like a dream instead of like the reality.
Right. Yeah, that's a great question. Like when I first started out, like it wasn't uncommon that like we would be working, sometimes like way over 12-hour days, sometimes, 16, 18-hour days, like on a music video or a commercial or something. And like when you're young, like you're just so grateful to be there, like you're just so happy to be there that you don't really question it. Um, as I got older, I like started to see like, oh, this is exploitative. Like, you are not paying me and compensating me for my time correctly. And like, I am giving you so much of my life to make this happen for you. And like, you really need to be your own best advocate, because whether it's intentionally or not, sometimes you can just get taken advantage of, and like you don't want that to happen. And so like like if you're going over 12-hour days, you're supposed to be getting time and a half and overtime pay. If you are working more than like 40, 50 hours a week, like you're supposed to be getting additional pay, especially in the state of California, especially in New York, where there's a lot of worker protections. And so like being aware um of the labor laws in your state, I think is really important. Um, and yeah, and really just learning how to advocate for
Hmm.
yourself.
Agreed, agree. Like wonderfully put, honestly. Thank you. So now I can finally go into some of the Q&A questions that we have. From Ryan, friend of the show, Nouveau Art Punk. They say this particular medium has a reputation of being hard and annoying to work in, but clearly you have to have some passion for the process in order to carry on. What is your favorite aspect of stop motion production?
Hanging out with people on set, like that's my favorite part, is like being on set with a bunch of other stop motion
Heck yeah.
animators. Um, like just meeting people and hanging out and like talking to your friends, and like you're all there for the same reason because you all love it. And so like that's my favorite. Like that's the best
Yeah.
part.
uh like obviously I haven't had like many opportunities to like interact with like people physically, but the ones that I have had, I very much appreciate some of the most fun I've had. And that's good because like animation is obviously a group effort, so why not enjoy to be around people in that group? Okay, second question from Real Slime Shade X. Favorite Robot Chicken sketch you've directed?
Well, we don't direct any of the
Mhm.
like we have a director. Um, but my favorite sketch that I did, oh, it's the Powerpuff Girls sketch. There's a Powerpuff Girls sketch on I think it's season 11, where the Powerpuff Girls beat up the mayor because he's perpetuating, because he's perpetuating systemic violence in the town by locking up all the criminals, and I think it's so
Oh
funny.
my god. Oh my god.
The director was literally like, Bona, we have the perfect sketch for
Oh my god. I'm gonna have to find a clip of that for sure. Oh my god. Ah.
you.
And final question. So it comes from another friend of the show, Zai Enterprises America, who they do their own stop motion shorts on YouTube actually. So they ask, I would love to hear Bond's recommendations for stop motion rigs. I'm going shopping next month. Granted, this was sent when we were originally going to record, but still, better late than never.
Better late than never. A little late, better
Yeah,
late than never. I hope they found
yeah.
the rigs that they need. Stop motion rigs are like so um different for every puppet, and so it really depends on the anatomy of
Mhm.
the puppet, right? We do I think I've had the best luck with like vertical and linear winder. And so you can find winder rigs like on eBay. They're not super cheap. um they're, but you can get a good winder for like $200, and it'll last you forever. They're so sturdy. um yeah, and so winder rigs are the way to
Oh
go, I
heck yeah.
think.
Yeah, thank you so much. So, just to close out, so what are you currently working on, or what can we look forward to seeing, hearing, whatever from you in the future?
Well, I just found out while we were recording this podcast that the project I did for Lizzo last spring just won two
Oh
Webby Awards.
shit!
Yeah. And which is pretty dope. And so that happened like
No,
just
that's
now.
incredible. Congratulations. So now I have an Emmy Award winner on my podcast. Oh,
Webby. Sorry,
hey,
a
still an
Webby.
awards award. An awards award.
Not an Emmy. An award's an award. It's not an Emmy. It's a Webby. But like it's so
Yeah,
cool.
absolutely. Anything else down the pipeline for you?
Yeah, actually, I just signed. This is like a little different for me. I'm gonna be doing some animation with a program, a children's museum called
Oh
the Rabbit
wow.
Hole. Um, and so I have that project coming up in a couple weeks where I'm gonna be doing some children's animation for the museum. And it's a really incredible place. It's in North Kansas City, Missouri, and it's a literary museum where they got the rights to all kinds of classic books like Madeline and Curious George and like Goodnight Moon, and they're building these huge exhibits that are like life size, so you can interact
Oh
with the
sick.
characters. Um, and so I'm gonna be directing some animation for them starting this summer.
Wow, that sounds incredible, honestly. Yeah, best of luck.
I'm super excited about
Yeah, heck yeah. And with that, are you on any social media that our listeners can keep track of you on?
Yeah, I'm at Bona.bones on TikTok and at Bonadonna on Instagram. And my website is bonabones.com, Bonabones. And you can sign up for meetings with me or reach out and email me through my website.
And obviously, as I can attest to, is well worth it.
Thank you. I'm so glad you're doing well. I'm so glad.
Thank you, like, for all your help. And obviously, I had to like reach back out to you in some form just to share with the good news.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. And listeners, as for me, if you want to keep up, as always, no, KashCast, so KashCast on Spotify, YouTube, and a lot of our streaming platforms. If you want to keep up with my personal Instagram or honestly, like a lot of social media sites, you can find me under Cash Art, so KASHED Art, or cash underscore. That's my personal Twitter. Cash on YouTube. Trying to get back into scripted videos is like another form of a creative expression. Um, and that is basically it. It has been great having you finally on the show. Always great to talk with you honestly.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. So with that, I guess like some final reminders. Support unions, obviously. Biggest moral
Support
for this
unions.
episode. Support your local animators, support your local production workers. We all need it. And I guess if you want to indirectly support me and like the many other talented people who worked on these projects, KIF is on Disney Plus, and also Disney Channel, Disney XD. Metalocalypse, the new movie, will be out eventually, so you can support that when it drops inevitably. And I don't know, I think I have like a copy somewhere that I'll link in the description. But I thank everyone who's been a listener or a guest or even just mildly interested in the show. It truly does mean a lot, and I hope I can use this show as a bit of a venue to give back some knowledge and experience to people who are in my position like before I broke in. So again, thank you for your support, and thank you for just being devout listeners. Now, I am Cash. Oh, yeah.
Do you want me to say
Yeah.
anything
You
now?
do that.
Okay. And I'm Bona.
And we will both see you next time. Just remember to stay safe, take care, wear a mask, and just remember, love and peace always.